if we want to do the exponential, we get it done by this way. So for performing exponential operation, we need to perform in different way. We have to add a library. That is, this code will explain the how to include this library. Now first line is hash include math.h. So here we are including library, that is math.h. Then there comes a main function, that is, this function is compulsory. Now int a, that means a is an integer. Now a is equal to power pow in bracket 3 comma 2. So this is a library function. Pow is a library function of math.hex library. Now printf %d, because a is an integer, so we have to write %d for it, comma a means that a in the previous line, that is %d comma a. Now bracket is completed. So here we have included math.hex function. Here pow function is a standard library function. So POW is a standard library function. It is being used to raise 3 to power of 2. So it is used for raising 3 to power of 2. Hash include math.hex is a preprocessor directive. It is being used here to ensure that the pow function works correctly. So include math.hex is a preprocessor directive, means we are telling compiler that, or we are predefining that. That's why it is called preprocessor. That means before processing. Directive means giving direction, the statement giving direction. So directive is statement giving direction. Then preprocessor means before processing. So preprocessor directive. So include math.hex is a preprocessor directive. That means it is a library function. It is being used here to ensure that pow function works correctly. So it is being used here to ensure that pow function, that is POW function, is works correctly. So it is it should be written before that pow function. Now integer and float conversions. Integer and float conversions. In order to effectively develop a C program, it will be necessary to understand rules that are used for the implicit conversion of floating point and integer values in C. So in order to effectively develop integer and float conversions, so we should know these rules that are used for implicit conversions of floating points and integer values in C. These are mentioned below. Note them carefully. That means these rules are as follows for integer and float conversions. Point A, an arithmetic operation between an integer and integer always yield an integer result. So operation between one integer and another integer will yield an integer result. B, an operation between a real and real always yields a real result. That means if both are uh, real numbers, then it will always yield a real result. So operation between integer will yield in integer result, and operation between real will yield real result. C, an operation between an integer and real will always yield a real result. That means operation between integer and real will yield a real result. In this operation, the integer first promoted. So operation between an integer and real will always yield a real result.